cool thing is like we're about the same age, and we probably have a lot of the same inspirations, which I think I positively know. And so reading this, it was pretty amazing. As I'm turning pages, I started to like feel like kind of the inspiration that you had coming through all the words, like from like obviously like Asimov and all that, of course, is there. But then even like more esoteric things like Theodore Sturgeon and Ray Bradbury, and like kind of the structure and all that stuff that's very classic was all there, but it was just a very modern take on all that, which was like so refreshing. I go to the bookstore and I wish I could have more Bradbury. I wish I could have more Sturgeon. I wish I could have all that, but that's what this kind of felt like when I was reading through it. It's well done, Keith.
Thank you. Just go ahead. Keep going.
keep going. No.
Yeah, I can listen to all day.
But that's like when you were doing this, like what were your like? I know your world, like your real world inspirations. You work with NASA. You do all these really cool things. But when you sat down and put pen to paper, so to say, like was there something that really like what stood out when you were doing that? When you were like, what were we channeling?
Boy, did I! And I did not set him up with this question. Just like the perfect question. You know what it was? It was the process of doing that exhibit, and I said, well, and that my exhibits are pretty interesting in that they're narrative, and so few things like that are a narrative thing, and we use like the ability to get track people and get them through to take them through a narrative in a non-narrative environment. But I said, well, what kind of narrative would be really the greatest thing to tell the story of how space flight works and what's special about our solar system and our physics in general. And I kept coming to this idea of what if instead of NBC, PBS had bought Star Trek.
Yeah.
And they did it, and it would have become something more like, like Carl Sagan's Star Trek, like he didn't do Cosmos, he did a narrative space adventure that would, that would be an exciting, action-packed, heroic space opera, but would pull those. It's my dog. That would
agrees.
He's the. You'll see him on my Instagram. It would pull a lot of the challenges and tensions and drama from real, space situations, real scientific situations. And that, was the real, impetus to this. And again, also I felt that, that Star Trek could provide, well, you see that the Odyssey is also a big influence in this, just from the names, from the title, which I want to get into with too, because the title has a manifold meaning in this. But, I used, not to sound pretentious at all, I am going to. I use the Odyssey in that Joycean way, where it's really more of a framework for the writer than it ever will be for the reader, And then similarly, Star Trek was that for me too. Like, okay, so if we're going to do this, what are all those wonderful things that I would want to see, and where would I want them to have taken it on Carl Sagan's Star Trek?
Yeah,
that they didn't, and they never did. On our Star Trek that we all saw, those moral, metaphysical questions, like, from, well, what does the transporter actually do to you? To how do you find out that planet has breathable air? How would you figure out where you were in the universe? How would you do all of these things if you never had to do them before? And I thought that it would be really, really cool to take you from a grounded, super realistic space adventure that I think you would agree that first book is very much The Martian, and then take you step by step, book by book, and end you up with Star Trek, with the Federation and the wild, because you think about Star Trek as, well, that's realistic sci-fi. Because it plays into it. It respects science and logic and true motivations, and that's why we call it that. But it's really fantastical, like it's and so how would we go, and how could you see that change and that massive change, psychological, societal, historical, through the eyes of one spaceship crew? And so that's really where I wanted to go with that.